Welcome to the Roberts Law Office Injury Podcast. Kentucky attorney Jeff Roberts has over 25 years of experience. He'll provide answers to your questions related to personal injury and automobile accidents, workers' compensation claims, and Social Security disability benefits. Let's join Jeff for this episode. And friends, we are back in Calloway County with personal injury attorney Jeff Roberts. And today we've got an interesting topic. This is kind of a topic out of the future. At least we used to say that. We're going to talk specifically about accidents involving self-driving cars. And Jeff, this is one of those weird situations, but evolution is happening, and we're seeing more and more of them on the road. And yeah, this is a topic to be discussed.
George Jetson is going to reach Kentucky before too long.
Good deal. So, you guys have been involved. When I say you guys,
Well, I think I just aged myself with George Jetson.
I was right there with you. I was like, yeah, okay. They've got the little machine in the house that pops out the turkey sandwich and the turkey already done. I'm all right with that. Yeah. But you're part of an organization of attorneys called the Kentucky Justice Association, KJA. And you guys have been dealing with this and talking about this for a while now, because obviously it's going to have a significant impact. But what we're really talking about are these cars that either drive on their own or have a kind of as long as the driver's in the front row, in the front seat there, the car will do most of the driving. So there's a couple of different ways to come after this.
Correct. There are, at least in Kentucky, I am a member of Kentucky Justice Association. I've been for years. Actually, will be president of the organization next year. And this is an issue that we have been dealing with because it's coming. In the Kentucky legislature, I think correctly said, look, we need to be proactive in this regard. I think several states have now passed legislation regarding this, but I don't even think it's up to 50%. It may be now. Last time I looked at it, it was not up to 50% that had passed laws regarding autonomous vehicles. But yeah, you have two different things that the legislation that just become effective this year in Kentucky got passed and took effect in July. You've got what's called autonomous vehicles. And an autonomous vehicle is one that does not have to have anybody in the vehicle. It can drive on its own without any person inside the vehicle or not at least in the driver's seat. And then you have what's called automated driving systems, which are which vehicles have. Some vehicles have those now as well, which you can set it and it will maintain your distance and keep you in your lane and do all of that. But there's supposed to be somebody in the driver's seat and that can take over the driving if something goes on or if there needs to be something taken care of from those. And so in this legislation deals with both of those types of vehicles.
It's kind of interesting. I mean, because I would think, and we talked about this as we were preparing for the episode, the idea of maybe having a taxi cab that maybe doesn't have a driver. Okay, I could see that, short trips around town. But what we're getting into is over-the-road freight. I mean, we're talking about big tractor trailers with no driver in the cab.
That is, yes. Now, Kentucky, that's not going to be part of the, that part's being phased in. Now, a autonomous car is legal in Kentucky at this point in time. If it is a vehicle, that's 6,200 pounds or more type vehicle, the semis, then they can be fully autonomous without a driver beginning July 31st, 2026. So there's still a little bit of time before you're going to see those out on the road, but that's going to be a little. It be nerve-wracking to me to be on the road and look in my rear view and see a semi coming up on me and there's no vehicle or no driver in that driver's seat. But that's you're going to be seeing that not just in Kentucky. I think you're going to see it all over before too long.
That's interesting. I mean, I could see that being a factor maybe out in the Dakotas or Wyoming or something where it's long, straight roads that just go on forever. But when you kind of get into the roadways we have here in Kentucky where you've got a lot of hills, you've got curves, you've got a lot of other traffic, you've got a lot of other infrastructure around that. Again, I just, wow, this is going to be kind of interesting. So,
Yeah.
let's kind of back up a little bit. Obviously, in Kentucky, well, go ahead and finish the thought here. I want to come back and talk about the insurance issues here in a second.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, in Kentucky, even already had platooning. And frankly, I didn't know about this until we were working on the autonomous vehicle aspect. But platooning is where you've got one truck as a lead, and then a second truck that is electronically or somehow connected to the first truck. The first truck I always had to have a driver in platooning in Kentucky, had to have a driver. Second truck had to have somebody in the driver's seat, but they did not have to actually be driving the semi. They could be basically letting the lead driver take it, and then whatever systems the second truck has on it to follow, maintaining the driver and the distance and all of those things. But there had to be a driver in the driver's seat of that second vehicle. And so Kentucky's actually had that for a little bit, but this law will allow, if it is truly a fully autonomous semi, beginning July 31st, 2026, it can be does not have to have a driver anywhere in that vehicle. So
Wow. Well, I got to pay more attention when I'm on the road. I want to see one of these platoons going down the road, but it's scary.
yes,
Anyway, let's kind of come back. Kentucky has what's called a state minimum when it comes to insurance. It's $25,000 in coverage. You want to kind of take it from there and how it's going to be impacted when you're dealing with these other types of vehicles?
yes. When you're talking about these types of vehicles, the insurance coverage is going to be, the requirement's going to be much greater. And actually, for the fully autonomous vehicles, the minimum coverage is going to be $1 million of coverage. And part of that is, you got a driver behind the wheel. Hopefully, they're paying attention, but they also got other assets and things of that nature. So you've got the $1 million minimum coverage for these autonomous vehicles that's going to be required. The owner's going to have to purchase that type of coverage. One of the biggest concerns with these vehicles was really going to be, or was from my standpoint, who was going to be the defendant if the autonomous vehicle caused a wreck. And, the reason for the autonomous vehicles is they're supposed to be safer than regular drivers, human drivers. That's yet to be seen, in my opinion. It may be in some situations, may not be in other situations.
And I guess one of the biggest ways to explain that would be the case that you're not going to have a truck driver out there who's drowsy, who is tired, or possibly intoxicated or under the influence of some other illicit drug or something like that. So there's an argument to be made, okay, look, this machine's not going to get tired.
Correct.
But again, there's a whole bunch of other factors. So
Well, yeah, and I've read articles in newspapers and other places where the autonomous vehicles, some of these vehicles, the self-driving or the automated driving systems, the autonomous vehicles have problems with when there are emergency first responders traveling, and of course the light may be green, but if you've got a siren coming and a police officer or an ambulance coming through that intersection with their lights and sirens, even though the light is green, they have the right of way. Well, if the autonomous vehicle can't detect that, they may or may not. I'm not sure, but if they don't detect that, then they could run into the police officer, ambulance, or whatever. In that regard, sometimes if you've snow on the road and they can't see, it doesn't detect where the lines are, that can cause problems. If the system is just messed up, I've known that there's been times where they have caused wrecks, and there's no doubt about that. And part of the concern was, all right, if you've got an autonomous vehicle, there's not a driver. Whenever somebody runs a red light right now, the driver who runs the red light is the one that is at fault and the one that the claim is brought against. Well, if you don't have a driver, who do you bring the claim against? And part of some of the laws, at least, or the proposals, was that the driver was the software, the autonomous vehicle software, or the automated driving system software. And
So we're going to sue a cyborg.
Well, exactly. You're suing, and then that's first off not a person, so you can't sue a non-person. You can't sue a thumb drive, and so there's got to be an entity out there, whether it's a person or a corporation, and so what you would have to sue is then the manufacturer of that software. And that can become problematic in a variety of ways. First off, Tesla, if it's a Tesla vehicle, well, Tesla may not have been the one who designed the software in that vehicle, and so Tesla may be the manufacturer of the vehicle, but the software, the automated driving system, may be from ADS software company or whatever it is. So may not know who the manufacturer of that system is for some time, and most of these companies aren't going to turn around and say who their component parts are made by, because they don't want the other companies to know, and things of that nature, trade secrets. But the other side to that is also that when you start suing a company over a design defect or a manufacturing defect in that software, those type of cases are extremely, extremely expensive. Any type of product liability case is extremely expensive. And you have product liability cases against car manufacturers now. If the airbags are defective in the vehicle, then you can pursue a product liability, or for some other sort of defect in the vehicle that causes the injuries, or the injuries to be worse, you can pursue a product liability case. But normally, to pursue those claims, you're required to have an expert witness who's going to say that it was defective, and this is what the defect was, and this is the way the defect could have been fixed. If it's a manufacturing or other type of defect, this is what it is, or if it's a design defect, here's the alternative design that could have been used that would have been safer. And so, but to pursue those with the expert witnesses that you have to have, the attorney involved in pursuing that type of case is going to have six figures of money tied up in expenses. You're going to have over $100,000 tied up in expenses to pursue a product liability case. Nearly every product liability case, you're going to have that kind of money if it goes to trial. Well, if you're driving your Ford F-150 downtown Murray or downtown Hopkinsville, and an autonomous vehicle runs a red light and hits your vehicle, you're not injured in the wreck, or even if you are, but it's a minor injury. But now your $50,000 truck is totaled. Well, if the only case you've got is a product liability case, it's going to cost $100,000 or more to pursue. You're not going to find an attorney that's going to be willing to pursue that case, because I can't pursue a case that's going to cost me more money to pursue than what we can ever recover in the case.
Yeah, the math just doesn't work.
It doesn't. Yeah. And so, and that was one of the issues that we had. Every state has to deal with things how they want to deal with them, but in Kentucky, at least, part of the law is that the owner of the vehicle is statutorily considered the driver of that autonomous vehicle. So if there's no driver in that vehicle, the owner is the driver for purposes of pursuing any type of case, which brings it back to a normal car wreck case, which is a whole lot less expensive to pursue from that standpoint. So you've got, if it was a product case but they had $1 million coverage, would the insurance company go ahead and pay in that setting? The one I was talking about where it's just property damage of $50,000, they may, but frankly, a lot of times the insurance companies also look at it and say, yeah, we know where it failed and we know we should pay, but we also know it's going to cost you more to pursue this, so you're never going to get an attorney to take this case. So no, we're not going to pay, or we're going to pay you $25,000 instead of $50,000. Yeah,
once they open the door to, hey, we're gonna pay all these claims, there's going to be a lot more of those claims. I would think so. They've got kind of a strategic reason to maybe run out the clock a little bit and see if you're going to bring the case.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the insurance company is going to look at that from that standpoint, and I mean they're for for-profit company, so what they can do to maximize profits is what they're going to do at times. And could there be other cases against the insurance company? Potentially, but again, you're getting to very expensive type of cases to pursue, and most people prefer to get their truck fixed instead of litigating the case for 2 years as well. So it's just the fact that we were able to get that change in Kentucky to where it is considered the owner of the vehicle is the driver is the one that the suit's against is going to make it a lot better for the citizens of Kentucky. And the legislature in doing that was, I mean, they because some states had passed the law the way it was originally, at least not. I don't know that Kentucky ever proposed it, but some of the ones pushing it wanted it proposed that way. And Kentucky, the legislature really was making sure they were looking out for the citizens of Kentucky when they made sure, okay, we're going to have the owner be considered the driver, and we're going to make sure you've got sufficient coverage to take care of, because frankly, especially with these semis, you can have catastrophic injuries.
Well, back in episode 80, I'm glad you brought that up. In episode 80, we talked about really Kentucky tractor trailer accident factors. I mean, we talked about that, and over the years, we've talked about a lot of different tractor trailer issues. Just the magnitude of the injuries, the severity of the injuries. I mean, anybody that's seen or heard or unfortunately been in one of these knows. I mean, that's a lot of metal moving down the road at a high rate of speed, and the injuries are just going to be horrible.
Yeah,
in many cases.
Yeah, the physics of it are that can you be involved in a semi wreck and not be injured? Yes, but statistically speaking, in physics, if you've got a semi that hits you at 25 miles an hour versus a car hitting you at 25 miles an hour, you're going to be more injured from the semi than you are a car. Same, like we talked about. I've handled a lot of people who've been injured in motorcycle wrecks as well, and you're going to be more injured if you're on a motorcycle in a wreck than if you're in a car in a wreck. It's just a fact of life. So.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, we talked about, those cases would be harder to pursue because, again, they're going to be much more expensive to pursue. Stuff like Kentucky's no-fault insurance, the PIP claim, that $10,000, I mean, that would still apply, correct?
Yes.
I mean, because that's paid by the car that you're in at that time.
Paid by the car that you're in. That's still going to apply. And now, since Kentucky has the owner being considered the driver, it's really not going to affect the cases like what the companies that are pushing these vehicles wanted from that standpoint. So Kentucky, it shouldn't have really that much of an effect now because the way the legislature has Kentucky statute written, it protects, like I said, it protects the individual in that setting. So
okay. And friends, if you want to go back to episode 59, we did do an episode that talked about understanding insurance coverage issues, and Jeff spoke a little bit in that episode about PIP or basic reparations benefits or
no-fault benefits.
No-fault benefits, all that personal injury protection benefits.
All the same thing with just a different name applied to it.
Yeah. But, I mean, so I could see this getting really, really complicated. As you and I talked about earlier, you would think it would be taxi cabs, running around the city. And at that, you'd think the rates of speed would be slower, so maybe the injuries wouldn't be as severe. But, man, oh, man, when you start talking about delivery trucks, when you start talking about big freight trucks out on the road, that just...
Right. And these systems, I don't know all about these systems at this point, but they, right now we have vehicles that have lane departure and that have automatic braking and things of that nature to make these vehicles, make our vehicles safer, and these vehicles hopefully be safer as well from that. And, my understanding is they have a variety of types of sensors that they are using in these vehicles, some ultrasonic ones that are for close-in objects, vehicles that have the automatic parallel parking type things, that part of the sensors they use for that. Or you can go to the standard, if you got parallel park, I just go find somewhere else to go. that some people utilize from there, but then they got radars in them that's much better for further things further away. from their laser sensors and things of that nature that these vehicles are going to use to hopefully make everything safer for people down the road. But everything's got a learning curve and a trial and error process from that standpoint, and we need to protect the people as best we can until these things get to where they are there. And may be some point in time we never have to drive a vehicle, steer it, or do any of these other things with it. But at some point that we may get there. Right now, I just don't think we're there, and to me, it's very scary. So,
well, I just don't want to be the test case or the guinea pig on this one. I tell you what,
I don't either, and I just hope they program them that you on the interstate, you get out into the left lane, pass, and get back over. You don't camp out in the left lane. If Teslas and all these others teach them to camp out in the left lane, we're going to have to do something about that.
Not in my Commonwealth, right?
Not in my Commonwealth. That's
There
right.
you go. Well, Jeff, let's talk about this real quickly. You've got 2 offices now, and it's been a little bit more than a year now that you've had your second office up in Christian County, up in Hopkinsville.
Correct.
And your primary office right here in Murray. It's right in Callaway, heart of Callaway County.
Exactly. I kept both of my offices in God's country. So
There you go. But the interesting thing about that is really you've got one office number that people need to know, and it'll ring from either area. It'll all ring to this area, and you'll be able to dispatch from there. What is that phone number? What's the easiest way to
phone number? Best way to reach me is by phone, and the phone number is 270-753-0053. If you do want to use an 800 number, the 800 number is 1-800-844-5108. You will, if you call that number, you're going to reach a live person 99% of the time if it's during business hours, and it's going to be a live person that works for me in my office. It's not going to be one of these companies. You're not going to
call center type.
Yeah, call centers. It's answering the phone and then trying to forward the call type stuff. You're getting somebody that works in my office when you call my office.
Outstanding. Well, Jeff, this is going to be an interesting development in watching kind of how this rolls out. So. Best of luck to all of us, I guess.
Yes, and they will develop the systems, and they'll be very good. I have no doubt about the technology eventually getting there. I just hope they don't. I hope they get there quicker, and they make sure they're operating the way they should be operating before they put them out on the roadways.
Buddy, at this point, I would love it just if they could figure out a way to make the yellow stripes on the roads more visible when it rains. I'd be really happy with that. But now we're talking about automated cars, so Here we go. All right, my friend. Hey, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. And the audience, I want to thank you all for listening as well. Be sure to take a look at jeffrobertslaw.com. You'll be able to find out a whole bunch of information. You'll be able to see some previous episodes from the podcast as well. And then, obviously, he's got a contact form and a phone number and a whole bunch of other information there for you. So, once again, thanks for your time, and we'll be back in about 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Roberts Law Office Injury Podcast. Jeff will return in 2 weeks. Until then, he invites you to visit jeffrobertslaw.com and follow his firm on Facebook. At the Roberts Law Office, you'll find a history of small-town service and big city results.